Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Common Discourse podcast. Boogie Bumper here joining you and joined by the voice of reason, Adam J. How are you, sir?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Not too bad. No, I'm okay normally, but straight away I can see we've got an issue with the chat. So the chat isn't coming across for some reason.
Oh, that's it, you know.
So I'm just
teething difficulties.
Teething issues. So I'm going to try and fix it on the fly.
Beautiful.
Let's see how we go. But
through it.
Tell us a little bit about your week. Oh, no, there it goes. There he goes. There he is.
I can't see it on my side.
You can't see it on your side? Oh, this is a professional operation we're running here.
Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
There you go. All right. How you been, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Yourself?
Good. Can't complain. Couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah. So,
Couple of weeks. Working
back on the
hard?
bike straight away. Oh, yeah, constantly.
Constantly.
Yeah. Another day, another dollar.
Yep.
It's the Sydney way.
Just one. You work for $1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you know.
Where have you been working? Southeast Asia?
Southeast Asia came to us.
Yes, that's right. They open their hearts and their markets
That's right.
for that big Australian cash.
You know, we're competing now.
How many politicians are they buying off these days, do you think?
Well, I think all of them.
All of them.
Yeah, well, and it depends the price.
You'd be mad not to get money from the Chinese government at this point.
Well, you know, of course, bit of side money, bit of side cash. I mean, that's a Sydney way as well.
That
side
is,
hustle.
Yeah. Everybody's always getting money on the side for something. We are criminal. We are convicts. So it only makes sense.
By definition, Damien.
Everyone's got their price. Have you noticed all of the Clive Palmer commercials around everywhere lately?
Ah, yes, even for the state election, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, voting Clive, Boogie?
No.
No. Yeah, no. I think it's too important to.
I can't believe anybody is after last time.
Yeah,
People have got very short memories.
Yeah, I mean, even, I guess you could say all the minor parties now, you'd be pretty, I guess, stupid. Maybe that's the wrong word, but I'm going to use it anyway.
What about?
You got to be a bit stupid. You got to vote for the Libs. I mean, like, I'm just, getting it out there
Straight away.
I know there's frustration, but Australians have to stop Bill Shorten. They have to do it. I mean, and that's, and I wasn't very, very much in favor of this argument when for the US presidential election. Of course, we're not Americans, so it's a little bit of a different. We
can't vote.
Yeah, we can't vote. So. But there were a lot of people out there, saying that, you got to vote for Donald Trump just to stop Hillary. And I was kind of lukewarm to that type of argument. I don't think, you got to vote for a candidate rather than against a candidate. But maybe it's changed a little bit because of Bill Shorten here in Australia.
A couple of people in the chat complaining about, the chat and stuff. I would just ask you, when was the last time you completely shut down your Periscope app and then restarted it? So if you've got an iPhone, double click the button, and then it'll show all the apps that are running in the background, swipe it up to completely shut it down, and then reload it again. Because it's not an issue with Restream.io, because otherwise everybody would be having the same issue. So the fact that it's only a few people here and there would lead me to suspect that it's something on your end, not on my end. Because otherwise everybody would complain about the chat, and not everybody does.
That's right.
So maybe that's a suggestion. Go in, shut down the app, make sure it's not running in the background or anything like that. Because I have to do that. Sometimes I don't get to see the chat ads. I can't see any bubbles or anything. People are talking. I shut down the app completely by doing that. Double click the button, swipe up, open it again. Everything's working fine. So
yeah,
just an idea. Before we do any Australian stuff, and I want to talk about a little bit of American stuff too. Obviously, it's going completely bitch cakes over in the United States.
Absolutely.
Just a little tip of the hat to our comrade who's not joining us today. He's off watching his young son, who's probably on the path to greatness, would you say, in the world of football?
Yep.
What is he playing in the ones now? Something like that?
Oh, he's doing something crazy.
Playing in the Premier League.
Ex-internationals or coaching him or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
he's doing really well. So, almost a valid excuse to miss a podcast. Almost. Yep. Not quite, but almost. If the kid makes it one day, then I'll expect,
Well, a few cases at least.
At least. Before we do Australian stuff, I want to have a look over in Europe. Ads, if you will. So there were local elections recently in the UK, ads. There's a new party. There's a new top dog in town. Hang on, let me just throw this up first. Brexit Party continues to surge in the polls for European elections as Change UK fall behind Lib Debs. And there is the former leader of UKIP, former member of European Parliament for UKIP, Nigel Farage, doing the hero shot.
Oh, it's a great shot.
It would have been better if he had been on top of a tank.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And with the helmet.
With the helmet on.
Goggles. Maybe not on.
One of
but
those
just
famous cigars out of his mouth. That would have been the
for
way to
Churchill.
go. Nigel Farage is continuing to smile after the latest polls for EU elections continue to show the Brexit Party leading the way. Despite only being launched last month, the Brexit Party quickly stormed to the top of the polls, and the latest set of figures show their support has only increased. According to YouGov, which is, of course, a known right-wing conspiracy website, Mr. Farage's party are now polling on 30%, an increase of 2% from the previous poll. And there you go, which is pretty encouraging for the Brexiteers.
Yeah, it is.
And, something that we've been talking about for a while, Brexit, the whole Brexit movement largely made up. People think it's just conservatives. It's not. A lot of conservatives actually want to stay in Europe. Same with a lot of Labor people. So it's actually a mixture of the two. It's a bipartisan thing to get out of Europe or stay in it.
Yep.
It doesn't necessarily cross party lines. So who's going to suffer, ads, in a bipartisan movement, a bipartisan nationalist movement, in a political system where it is essentially a two-party system? Who's going to suffer the most?
Well,
The two parties, right?
yeah, the two parties. And I guess there's been an attempt lately to try and soothe Brexit talk, I guess you could say, by saying that maybe, it shouldn't happen and maybe there should be elections and maybe there should be a different direction. And this blows it out of the water.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
This
blows it out of the water.
I want to show you a little clip here. There were local elections in the UK, and, you want to talk about the two major parties suffering. This is what it looks like.
Oh, now look at this. How about that?
How about
After
that?
the day the Prime Minister's had, there are many wondering if they could do her job. But in Grimsby tonight, at least the competition was friendly. This is one of the only places the Conservatives made gains in the local elections, as Theresa May acknowledged a Brexit backlash.
Now, because we haven't delivered the Brexit
Wow,
deal through Parliament
what's
yet,
around her neck?
this was going to be a particular...
They're the blue pearls of wisdom.
Oh, right. Anyway.
Yeah. It almost looks like a blue whale gave her a pearl necklace, doesn't it?
particularly challenging set of elections for both main parties.
I think she came straight from the Children's Museum. Those are, you purchase those from the gift shops. They're little models of Uranus. I think you'll find little Plutos hanging around her neck.
And as the party that has been in government for 9 years, it was, of course, always going to be
It's actually a neck massager, you know, like the beads that you'll put in the truck. So she's actually got it. She's wearing it the wrong way. It's supposed to be behind the shoulder blades.
Or the beads that you, anyway.
Yeah. You put it behind the shoulder blades to deflect any knives that might be coming your direction from your party members.
particularly difficult for us.
Wherever she went today, there was no escaping the results. Not even somewhere that didn't declare any. These were Welsh Conservatives angry at English losses.
Why don't you resign?
This heckler used to do PR for Boris Johnson. Perhaps he still does.
Kick him out. Kick him out. Let's chase him out into the cornfield. Oh, you know what? They're just doing really well, the Conservatives in the UK, aren't they?
Jeez, I mean, look at the crowd.
They're high energy crowd.
That's it.
They're doing so well over there.
And Bryn Honda.
That's almost Welsh for good afternoon. But today the Conservatives had one of their worst. For both main parties, it was hands up who'd had the biggest disaster. But the Conservatives lost the most seats.
Is that the British Trump right there? Look at that. Look at that guy. He looks like a combination of Trump and Rodney Dangerfield.
No, I don't know. I just want to chuck some bird feed at him.
More than 1,300, giving away councils like Peterborough, Basildon and St Albans. Voters' frustration scrawled across ballot papers, a local vote, but in many ways, a national protest. Labour should have had far more to cheer about, but after 9 years in opposition,
Stereotypical Labour representatives on camera.
they too went backwards, losing more councils than they won. And having tried to please all voters, does Jeremy Corbyn accept he may have pleased none?
The
What's
age-old
wrong?
adage.
What's wrong with not wearing a tie? I mean,
Good question. Is there anything wrong with it?
well, you know, you're the alternative leader of your own country. Wear a tie.
Wear a tie?
Wear a tie, any tie.
Come on, formal up a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, like, you know, and it's just like, okay, if you're not going to wear a tie, then lose the blazer.
He is a socialist, though.
Yeah,
Shouldn't he be wearing like a tie-dye shirt?
Yeah, one of those, the
Che Guevara
yeah,
t-shirt.
choker.
A leash. Doc Martens. I'd love to see him strut out in a Che Guevara t-shirt.
Well, Doc Martens, I mean, he would take 10 steps and fall flat on his face.
Yeah, too heavy, too hard to lift.
That's right.
But isn't it the age-old thing? If you try to please everyone, you'll inevitably end up pleasing nobody.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. Oh, what about the bird in the back? Well, she's about to...
Oh, yeah, she's a big fan.
Perhaps hinting tonight at a deal with the government to finally get Brexit done.
I think it means
See, the great irony of all this, you know, the Conservatives, the Tories, they're owning the Brexit failure, which is fair enough because they're in government, right? So no, like I'm not crying any tears for them, but Theresa May, the leader of the Tory party, was against Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn is pro-Brexit, his own personal view. Now, he, during the Brexit vote, was like, well, you know, personally, yeah, but I can see, like, there's a lot of reasons not to do it because he knew, like, you know, 60 or 70% of his base wanted to stay in Europe.
Yeah, well, that's
Isn't it.
it.
Funny little paradoxical thing that's going on.
Yeah, that's you know, we come back to the original point, don't we? That, you know, both of these leaders find it extremely difficult where large chunks of their own parties, their respective parties, are either Europhile, I guess you could say it.
Europhile.
And totally, you know, skeptical of Europe, hard Brexit, you know, and so they have to juggle that constantly, and it's not easy.
No.
I mean, if the roles were reversed and somehow Corbyn was in office, he would also have to move to some type of Brexit deal. And he would face a lot of the same problems that Theresa May did.
I think he's come out and said, oh, maybe we'll have a second referendum.
Well, there you go. And
But
I don't know
playing both sides again, right?
let's remember one thing, that this is being polled in the background to death. I mean, there are focus groups after focus groups.
Constantly.
The two big parties are definitely looking for a way out of this, because this is extremely difficult. I mean, there is no proper Brexit without pain. I mean, I don't care. There's a lot of people out there that say that Brexit will be the end of the world economically for Great Britain. That is, of course, false. And there are people out there also that try and sugarcoat it and say, "Oh, it's going to be nothing. There's, you know, we're just going to be out of."
Probably going to be somewhere in between.
And of course, you know, without dabbling into the fallacy of middle ground, the truth is somewhere really in this case, somewhere in between that. There will be some pain, but of course, this is toxic when it comes to polls and all that type of shit.
I dislike when people say, oh, it's going to be easy, we just have to do it, because one of my retorts to the people that say it's going to be chaos is, and, you know, nobody said it was going to be easy. So, yeah, but people are willing, you want people to get in their heads, no, we're willing to take that hurt, that financial hit. Like, just consider it a market correction.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because if you get, you wanted your sovereignty back, right? So if that's what you want, this is what it's going to take.
Yeah. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
No.
And
I think the more this goes on, hard Brexit just looks even better.
Yeah. And this is part of the problem of why this whole referendum came about, was because a lot of particularly supporters of Europe, of the European Union and further integration, completely painted a picture of some type of utopia that, that membership of the EU is, that silver bullet that will solve all your problems, that you don't have to worry about anything. And
the asset attacks are just very random.
Yeah. No, but
I'm
talking more about, economically, about
your pensions.
Standard of living and stuff like that, that it was sold as a golden egg, and it just isn't.
It's not.
It's not.
Nothing is.
Yeah.
Question in the chat from the owner and CEO of TAVshow.com, Adam James R. How is Brexit still not done? Do you want to take that one on? There's 100 reasons. And I think the problem is all of these reasons are equally valid but irrelevant at the same time. Because whatever little tiny little problem that you can isolate and magnify and make it out to be a big problem, oh, well, if we have Brexit, then, it's going to take longer for students to get working passports overseas. And then that becomes the thing that students
What
talk
about all the retirees in Spain? All that type of stuff. And
blah, blah, blah.
And, these are valid discussion points. I mean, let's not, that.
But compared to like the main abstract concept of should the UK be part of Europe or not, they are essentially irrelevant, right? Because they'll sort themselves out.
Look, why hasn't Brexit happened? Because the political class in the United Kingdom, the media, are heavily invested in the European project. I guess we could call it that way, and they they are going to do everything to stop it happening. I mean, that's just the short answer there. That's why it hasn't happened.
Yep.
No one wants to have as their legacy that they took Great Britain out of Europe.
Yep.
And it's extremely tough for them. I mean, this is not, people are going against what they believe, especially Theresa May. I mean, Theresa May is pro-Europe. There is, I wouldn't put it in the Europhile category, but definitely she is in favour of the UK staying in the EU. So, I mean, that's why it hasn't happened. I mean, these are huge decisions, and really the integration has gone to such a level that there has to be a prolonged negotiation process to get out of it.
You know why it hasn't happened yet? The short answer to all that, it hasn't happened yet because politicians are involved. That's it, end of story. That's why it hasn't happened. I found this article just minutes before we went live, ads, from the European Council of Foreign Relations. So you know it's on the level. Europe's underestimated young voters. One of the unwritten rules of European political campaigns is that you should never bet on young voters. On the face of it, they may look like a promising source of support for pro-EU parties, but, so the argument goes, they rarely vote, as seen in the bitter and disappointment of the Brexit referendum. And the inhabitants of Ireland and Cyprus aside, the young constitute only a minor part of Europe's rapidly ageing population. According to Eurostat, just 26% of citizens in the EU are under the age of 25, while 40% are 50 or older. But that's changing, thankfully, with immigration from North Africa. So, there's more young people entering the political fray, getting their elbows out, demanding things. So that's a plus for the European Union, obviously. New research by the European Council on Foreign Relations and YouGov shows that young voters, sometimes called Generation Z and millennials, are less likely to vote than other groups. But the difference is not as stark as one might expect. In fact, most EU countries, more than 1/3 of young people plan to participate in the May 2019 European Parliament election. The participation rate among young people in Italy is projected to be close to 50%.
That's massive for European elections.
Huge.
Huge.
Huge. But then remember, Italy just went full fash, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
See, I don't know. I wonder, are they just assuming that? I know a lot of the millennials tend to vote left, but can that change? Can that change?
Well,
because I would suggest maybe a lot of young people in places like Germany, especially, are starting to reject the programming. You know what I mean? Like, hey, why am I getting punished for this Hitler guy? Like, that was 80 years ago. Well, no, seriously. Hey, that was 80 years ago. It wasn't my fault. I didn't do it.
Yeah, well, no, it's not their fault, but I mean,
relevant question though.
Yeah, well, I would say it's self-punishment.
Don't you like Hitler?
No, absolutely not. I would say on the part of the Germans, it's more self kind of punishment.
Yes.
I mean, I was
self-flagellation.
I was in Europe recently, and even in Poland more specifically, and people are just amazed at the level of just it's. In some ways, it's embarrassing. Like, it's just too much. It's like, hey, it's over.
Yep.
Yeah, we're pissed, but not necessarily at you. Like, let's start afresh. Let bygones be bygones.
Yep.
But this is crazy. So, I mean, the Germans, they just love that shit.
They absolutely do.
They do.
So there you go. Europe's underestimated young voters. I don't underestimate them because I remember in the fallout of the Brexit vote, people are Googling, remember the top Google search, what is the EU? So in Europe,
just going back to the young voters.
What
as
is
well.
Brexit? The day after the vote.
Yeah, that's a classic. But just going back to the young voters. I mean, young voters are just not as motivated as older generations are. They take democracy for granted.
Yes. They don't understand why it's important.
They don't understand why it's important. They'll whine about that Brexit happened or something like that, but they didn't go and vote. They probably won't go to vote for the European elections. They just believe that society is just like on a rail track, and it's just going to go down that way.
Yep.
And that
they can put their feet up, have drinks served, everything's going to work out fine.
Everything's going to work out fine. While older voters, they go and vote. I mean, this is not a new phenomena. What's happening with the Eurosceptic Party in Great Britain?
Older voters, I think, want to put the reins on government. And younger voters are like, no, government is here to serve, like here to protect me and do everything for me.
But yeah, that's because of the school system, because they were taught that in school. by a generation of leftist
Hippies. Yep.
God love them. But that's the truth.
The state is father. The father provides. Worship the state.
Yeah. Collectivism.
Yep. Well, speaking of that, let's go to a little bit of Australian election because we're about 2 weeks away from the election. Thanks everyone for joining us in the chat and thanks for sharing it out. If you do, please do. Yeah. And then after this, we'll head over to the United States. What do you say? So they had one of these informal debates.
This is just in Australia.
Australia.
This is something that could only happen in Australia. I mean, just thinking about it. When you watch these, I didn't watch this particular one. We watched some of the clips before the show.
We did.
But I've watched a fair few of these, and it's just something that you'll never see in America, never mind Europe. It's just so informal, just at the pub.
Casual. Yeah.
Just a few tables set up and a microphone.
Yeah, people there with their beers and their...
It's like trivia night.
With their steak sandwiches.
Yeah, that's right.
It is trivia.
Yeah, it's something that you'd only find in Australia.
Tell you what, whoever wins the debate gets to take home a frozen chook.
That's it. Or he gets a meat tray.
Gets a meat tray. Did you buy your tickets for the raffle for the meat tray? It's going to the local footy team.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. So there's an election here in a couple of weeks. It's Scott Morrison, the current Prime Minister, going up against the union hack and all-round dunce, Bill Shorten, who is still ahead in the polls, mind you. But Bill Shorten had this to say about the state of common discourse in politics in this country.
Can't wait to hear it, mate.
I don't think people should be persecuted because of their religious faith. And I've always thought that. But I also have to, just for the sake of it, you mentioned a particular topic. I don't think women seeking an abortion in this country should have to go through a whole ring of protesters either.
Like abortion is just like any other religious faith, right?
So it's a very interesting and tough question, isn't it? I don't think when people were campaigning for marriage equality, people got different views on it, that's fair enough. But I also don't think that someone who supports marriage equality should be equated as wanting to, support, aberrant sexual practices merely because they support marriage equality.
Did he say aberrant by any chance? Did you notice that?
Yeah. It
wasn't abhorrent.
I didn't recognise that. Maybe I'm not the best person to criticise.
No, you're right.
It was growing up, but yeah.
You're right. No, it's not aberrant. It's abhorrent.
Yeah. Abhorrent.
But see, this is the thing, right? Oh, no, I believe in people, expressing their religious views as long as they're not anti-abortion and anti-gay.
Yeah, well, that's it. You are free to express your backward medieval views.
Yes.
Just as long as you come to the same conclusion as I do.
Exactly.
I mean, it's very simple.
Yeah.
And I mean, and as soon as you don't come to the same conclusions, and don't recognize that you had your voice heard, then
you need to be ostracized.
Well, you need to lose your job.
Yep.
You need to be shamed publicly on various news websites.
Yep. Preferably on a current affair or some time of news program as well.
Oh, absolutely. So I mean, that's really what Billy's saying here.
Yes.
That he's an absolute raging communist.
Yeah. nice analysis.
I think you go to a deeper question here, not only for what motivates you, but more generally, there is a lack of civility in the public debate.
Can I just...
Absolutely.
It's always, you yourself are not going deep enough. I'm going to go deeper for you because you can't go that deep.
Because you're an idiot.
Right? Yeah, you're an idiot. You can't go as deep as I can because I can get deeper.
And I can address a topic that you didn't even raise.
Yeah, so I know you feel uncomfortable talking about some stuff, rah, but I can talk about it and I'm going to explain it to you and how you should think about this issue. And that's Billy here. Like, this is the great thing about Australian politics. It's so naive in a way that things that get picked up on straight away in Europe. I mean, if Bill Shorten was in Europe, he'd get hammered straight away.
Yep.
And the same in the States.
Yep.
But here it's just like, it's just people are a little bit more naive and like, oh yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hilarious.
He's not though. He's not. And the other thing too is the sheer audacity of the guy who, during the marriage equality debate, essentially said anybody who disagrees is a homophobic bigot. Right? Remember that?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Anybody who disagrees with gay marriage, even though he disagreed with it only a few years prior when it was politically convenient to do so, But now everybody on the other side is a bigot and a homophobe and stuff. He's now calling for civility.
Yeah, when he was against it, it was understandable.
Yeah.
But if you're against it, it's not.
No, that's right.
Yeah, well.
And I just want to bring up some of the civility that Bill Shorten holds in such high regard. He actually goes on in this clip to blame the mainstream media.
Oh.
Yeah, funnily enough. But here's Bill Shorten. Remember the kid who smashed the egg over Fraser Anning's head a few weeks ago?
Yes,
Egg Boy?
Egg Boy.
Egg Boy became an internet sensation overnight. This is what Mr. Shorten said in response to Egg Boy. Shorten defends Egg Boy. Opposition leader Bill Shorten has defended the young man who cracked an egg over Senator Fraser Anning's head, saying he understands where he's coming from. It gets better. He's not a villain, he said. He's a frustrated young person looking at the toxic nature of what this man's saying. I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, this is a nice way of, I guess,
Green
proliferating a kind of punch-a-Nazi.
Yeah, we
type.
want more of that behavior.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's reverse the roles. I mean, we don't want to delve too much into whataboutism.
Just before you do,
Yeah.
I've got one more quote for you from Bill
Sure.
Shorten. He said, because remember, this kid got tackled by a few people and then arrested. How many neo-Nazi loving thugs does it take to wrestle a 17-year-old? So now the 17-year-old is actually the victim. I think the reaction by the goons around the senator was so over the top, it actually shows you what we're dealing with in the fringe elements of Australia. So he's taken a kid who went up to a sitting senator and, by definition of the law, see, we're not going to say that he was assaulted or anything like that.
No, I mean,
But
I don't think
by-
even the senator would say that.
No, but by definition of law, he was, right?
Yeah.
Even though we would be like, oh, come on, don't don't go over the top here.
Yeah.
It was just an egg. But it is what it is. And then he now becomes the victim because he was tackled to the ground after attacking a sitting senator. And it's like, well, I understand where he's
By
coming from.
neo-Nazi thugs.
That's right. Neo-Nazi thugs.
Let's not forget that point, which is very important.
Wherever there's an incident, there must be a Nazi just
right.
around the corner.
That's it. And the brave soul stood up. I mean, he was in a crowd
Yeah,
full
he
of
was very
neo-Nazi
brave.
thugs.
It was
And
inspiring.
he brought his egg.
Yeah.
And the bravery. I mean,
The bravery. Yeah.
bravery. I mean, if Stalin was around, he would have to get the order,
Oh, order. Yeah, round of applause.
That's it.
The
big
whole
ceremony.
proletariat would be standing up
Oh, that's
on the streets of
exactly
Moscow. And then one more.
His family would have food for a year.
Yeah, exactly. Just one. Just 1 year. Bill Shorten slams Donald Trump as barking mad. This was back in 2016 ads. Bill Shorten has slammed Donald Trump as barking mad, saying his dominance is the ultimate victory of celebrity politics. He said, the ultimate victory of celebrity politics, the ultimate protest vote. I got in trouble on the campaign trail for saying what I think. I think Donald Trump's views are just barking mad. So there you go.
Oh, top shelf.
So this is the guy who wants civility.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
No, he's full of shit.
He's full of shit.
No, and just going back to the way that the egg incident was portrayed.
Sure.
I mean, and again, I don't want to delve into whataboutism here too much, but it's necessary sometimes. If not, it's not doesn't give you the complete picture. But the thing is, I mean, what about a gay rights campaigner, gay marriage campaigner? Let's pick one. Penny Wong.
Penny Wong.
Penny Wong. I mean, one of the top, gay marriage campaigners here in the Labor Party. I mean, if she was egged by a person, a young kid, I mean,
The outrage.
the outrage, I mean, the assault, the complete,
The attack on women.
the lack of civility.
We don't do enough in this country to protect women from
Yeah.
violent acts.
Well, back in the 80s,
Yeah.
gays are getting bashed in the street. I mean, that's all these
the
things.
racism. Don't forget the racism.
That's it. It would have
Yeah.
been used. And the kid would have been crucified.
Mhm.
I mean,
10 years in jail.
and yeah, that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
You
What
know?
about the kid who got 14 years in prison in New Zealand for sharing the live stream of the shooting?
That's
14 years prison.
It's a long time.
He was just sitting in his room and he saw something come up and he shared it on the internet.
It's a young kid on the net.
See you later.
That's it.
14 years. Now he's thrown in with rapists, armed robbers. He'll have to, give head jobs to white nationalists in prison.
Mm.
It's pretty fucking harsh, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's crazy.
It is crazy. It's insane. It's police
batshit
state
crazy.
stuff.
Yeah, it's batshit crazy.
Yep. A bit more from this little to and fro. Climate change is apparently still an issue. I didn't know. It was news to me. Most people I talk to don't ever talk about climate change ever.
Yeah, well, sometimes we talk about the climate. It's hot, it's cold, it's raining.
Yeah, that's the weather.
Yeah,
We're talking
yeah.
about the weather.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but whenever these little debates happen, the media is always asking the questions about climate change. So, Scott Morrison, I think we've got an issue with the way the Conservatives even go at climate change already. But let's hear what Scott Morrison's got to say.
Well, they've been cornered. They're trapped.
They can't do anything.
And they can't change the paradigm. I guess you could say, put it that way. There's no reframe here. They're too scared to do it. That's basically it.
Our plan to take action on climate change.
Has he been sentenced? Yeah, I think he's been sentenced and found guilty, Kimmy. 14 years in prison. But Google that up. I might be wrong, but that's just what I heard around the traps. So
parties have plans to take action on climate change. Both of us do.
Action.
We have a 26%.
I love this term, action on climate change ads. Like, what action specifically? Oh, we're going to move the allowable bracket for pollution from 5% to 7.5%. Oh, this is action. Because when somebody says we're taking action on something, you imagine things happening, don't you? You think there's going to be like an army of people out there picking up rubbish in the street or something, right? Oh, we're taking action. But there is no action.
Well. Recently, there's
no action.
Well, recently there's been, I think, a few schools or students boycotted a day of school to protest about climate change.
Yep.
And I mean,
yes, that was action.
Yeah, and maybe they're onto something. I mean, maybe we can confiscate every electronic device that a kid has under the age of 18.
I like the way you think.
And
I like where you're going with this.
And then, to charge these things, I mean, it takes a shitload of electricity.
How could we know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the damage that's being done.
Yeah, we can just, cut it back. And the heat, I mean, if you hold a phone, if you're on the phone for an hour and a half,
Very
you
true.
can feel that heat. Like, that's got to be warming something.
Very true.
And if we just confiscated all that,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll just be great. Here's a book, here's a paper, here's a textbook.
Let's neutralize your carbon footprint, young fella.
That's it.
Do something for the earth. Do something for the
I
environment.
wonder how popular that would be.
Well, let's carry on.
% emissions reduction target. The Labor Party has a 45% emissions target. That means that we have to reduce, we have to meet our carbon emissions reductions by 328 million tonnes out to 2030. The Labor Party has to hit 1.3 billion tonnes over that.
See, this is ScoMo's problem. He's a smart guy. Nobody doubts that ScoMo isn't a smart guy. He was the treasurer. He gets numbers. He knows numbers. The problem with ScoMo is 98 people in this crowd of 100 do not understand what the fuck he's talking about. Once you start going on with numbers and figures and adjustments and this kind of, their eyes glaze over. And this is the great advantage that the left-wing politician has in these debates, because his response, like his people respond to feelings-based arguments. So he just has to get up there. He doesn't have to mention one target, 1 ounce of scientific data himself. He'll just say, well, look, over here in the Labor Party, we actually respect the scientists. And we know that we have a responsibility, a moral obligation to hand over the world to the next generations better than what we left it in. And over there, they're too afraid. He's going to bedazzle you with all kinds of alternative facts and figures.
Yeah, he's basically reading an Excel spreadsheet and, just doing these little...
But he's not serious. We take this responsibility very seriously.
Well, that's true. That's how it is.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how should it be? I mean, it's very important, all these facts and figures. And everyone's switched off and no one gives a fuck. And that's just how it is. And that's a big problem for Scott Morrison. He's a numbers period of time. He's a numbers guy.
He is.
Time. Now, we've already made sure that we'll be meeting our Kyoto 2020 targets. When we came to government, we were over 700 million tonnes behind in meeting those Kyoto targets. We've turned that around, and by the 2020
See, this is just me, and I'm obviously, I wouldn't be elected for the Liberal Party because there's too much that I would disagree on with the Liberal Party. I'm probably more on the Lib Democrat side of things, right? But I would be like, what the fuck is the Kyoto target? Fuck the Kyoto target. Why don't we just do the best possible job we can and manage all of these expectations in a reasonable, rational
without
way?
Hacking at the economy.
Exactly.
I mean, that's exactly.
Why are we placing arbitrary pollution targets over how we conduct our business here? Like, why the fuck are we listening? Who cares about the Kyoto target? Just tear it up. First day in office, tear it up. And, hey, maybe we can get more clean energy if we actually reduce regulations and allow business to invest more money in it. Maybe there's an idea for once, right?
That's a great idea.
No, only the government can invest in green energy, right? But people are saying, the 26%. But the Liberal Party's spruiking 26% renewable energy. But people are saying, why have a target at all?
Well, the Labor Party's just trying to mimic the Green New Deal that we saw, come out a few months ago in the States. Bill Shorten's trying to, he's going there.
Oh, is he?
And yeah, some of his costings were completely rubbished, and
Usually are.
they usually are. And the difference here is I don't believe for a second that Bill Shorten is some kind of climate change believer or anything like that. This is all about massaging his base.
Yep.
This is all about, obviously, this has been polled to the shithouse with focus groups, that there is a general, I guess you could say, worry about climate change, which, Australia is very specific in this respect that, obviously we've got a lot of natural wonders. I mean, even the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, talk about that. That's very emotional for Australians, I guess you could say, that
Sure.
gets people thinking.
Rightly so.
We love the reef.
Yep.
So we don't want it, to see it be damaged or whatnot. And so it gets some traction here, that general question about climate change. And Bill Shorten's,
Because they merge it with pollution.
That's right. And Bill Shorten's trying to feed off that and trying to get votes from it. But he doesn't care. And if he comes into government, these changes will be miniature. Like, they'll be minuscule. Like, it's just, they're talking about nothing, to be honest.
Yeah. And, it would butcher the economy, what he wants to do. And even his own people will admit that. But you know what they respond to that with? Because if you're talking about butchering the economy, you're using numbers again. People don't listen to numbers. And the response to when you say you're butchering the economy, they say, oh, well, they're just clinging to coal like dinosaurs. And then they win. They somehow win the debate. Here's a little monologue from Bill Shorten.
Sorry, just to interrupt. It's always interesting how, clinging to coal, like it's some kind of emotional attachment to coal.
Yes, always.
And it's like, I just want to burn coal so I don't freeze.
Well, I don't know about
Or
you,
eat.
but I go to bed with a lump of coal every night.
Really?
And I hug it and go
Have you
to sleep.
given it a name?
Yes. Tyrone.
Oh, Jesus.
Tyrone.
This nation faces a choice, and thank you very much for listening to our spirited debate tonight. The choice is more of the same. Do you really think that life has been so fantastic in the last 6 years? I've spoken about the increase to childcare, 28.
Do you really think so? What is he going to make Australia great again? Is he?
Yeah, well, that's central to the argument that government is the answer. I am the leader of a party that believes in big government.
I am your lord.
Yes. The problem here is that government isn't big enough. If it was really, really, really big,
Yes.
then all your problems will be solved.
Yep.
And we'll just pay for your childcare. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, it's just.
I had this out with Greeno. Now, Greeno's got 2 young kids in childcare, right? And Greeno's not very engaged in politics. He doesn't really, and that's fine. You don't have to be in this country. That's perfectly fine. That's what freedom is. But we were talking about childcare, and he has to pay a small fortune to get his kids in childcare. His kid has been sick, not able to go to childcare. He still has to pay, even though the kid's not there. And we were talking about it on the starting block. And I said, the reason that these things are so expensive to begin with is because of government regulations. Like, you can only have 6 kids per person. You need to have these railings. You need to have this installed. And he said, yeah, but, I don't want, my kids, at risk. And I'm like, but how many kids were dying in childcare centres in the 80s and the 90s? None.
Yeah.
So they've manufactured a crisis in order for government to be the solution, which then increases the price like exponentially. And then they have the fold back approach of coming back to you and say, hey, we can help you out with these prices. We'll give you half your money back. And everyone's like, oh, thank you. And it's like, no, they shouldn't be fucking taking it in the first place. They're not the good guys for reducing, for giving you, half quote unquote free childcare. They're the bad guys for making it so expensive that you can't afford it unless they do.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a huge. You can open a huge can of worms when it comes to childcare.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, it's economically beneficial for Australia for parents to keep working while their children are young. This is all about productivity. Yeah, that's a
Beneficial
thing.
economically for the country, maybe perhaps not beneficial
And
for
that
the
was
children.
Exactly my point. I mean, how did these things used to happen? I mean, usually the wife would stay home for a few years.
Can I just add one thing? Perhaps it's not just economically beneficial for the country, but it's also probably now an economic requirement for the families because there's so much regulation. We've socialized everything since the 70s. So now both parents have to work in order to do what you could get done on one wage previously.
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes to cost of living pressures. I just shudder when I hear that saying. But yeah, that's
we're in
what it is.
Sydney, one of the most expensive cities in the world to live.
There is no fucking around. No, there's no getting around that. And it's tough. So I mean, and it's the seduction here is real. I mean, of course.
The lure of socialism.
Yeah, the lure of socialism. But you got a problem. Yeah, you want to keep working. You want to keep having a certain standard of living, going to Europe once a year or going to the States once a year with the whole family. You want to have and maintain 2 fucking brand spanking new cars, one for the husband, one for the wife, all these things. And you want to send them to childcare and keep working. And, but, having children is about sacrifice.
Sure.
I mean, and sometimes you have to sacrifice, for a few years, especially when they're young, a bit of time. And once they go into school, then it's better. And of course, then you can try and manage that after school care or whatever. But I mean,
well, that's the thing. Some people...
Can I say something controversial?
You're on the right show.
I mean, making sure if you want to work, right, and if you want to send your kids to childcare, that's your problem. That's not the government's problem, and it's not my problem.
Yep.
And that might sound
controversial.
Yeah, well, it's a little bit brutal, isn't it? I mean, in the
it's reality.
That's reality. I mean, if it's not for the government to subsidise your childcare costs, it's about government to get out of the way so the childcare costs come down. Because, and kill that regulation.
Yeah.
But fuck, other than that, I mean, shit.
I want to see childcare centres with a risk of death. You know why? Because those childcare centres won't stay open very long, and that means the people that do good business and actually, at a competitive price and provide top quality care to their customers, they will be the ones that go to the top of the list. And if you're running a dodgy operation where kids are getting their livers removed and sent off to China or something, then you're not going to stay in the market very long. The government doesn't have to tell us the right and the wrong.
And the problem here is that, let's say a conservative-minded government deregulated the childcare industry here, and something like that did happen, then they would lose the next election.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, and that's the problem.
Childcare crisis.
Yeah, and what the problem here is, the central problem is other voters. They get fooled by these arguments.
Yes,
and
they don't do the homework.
And they don't do their homework.
Let's have a little bit more, Bill, and then we'll move on.
8%.
Great comment in the chat, by the way, from Kimmy. She said when we were talking about the cost of living and stuff and having to have 2 parents work, she's like, "Oh, yay, thank you, feminism."
Increase of your out-of-pockets to go and see the doctor, 20%, a specialist nearly 40%. The increase in energy bills in the last 3 years alone, nearly 20%.
I can't believe he's got the balls to bring up the increase in energy bills.
I think we thought that exact same thing. The government he supported.
Yes,
he was part of the government.
He wants to make it worse.
I mean, energy prices exploded under Labor governments here in Australia. Exploded. And it was all about the climate change, talking about we got to hit targets.
And when we're saying exploded, we're not saying like up 10%. We're like up 100%. We pay more. Like we pay 3 times as much for energy in this country than people do in the United States. Did you know that?
I know that, yeah, I know it was bad, but not quite that bad.
It's that bad. And it's only getting worse.
And in Australia, coal abundant.
We're one of the most resource-rich nations on planet Earth. We have 40% of the world's uranium. And we don't have any nuclear power stations.
That's right. And even meat prices and seafood.
Yeah. It's all going up. Still relatively cheap here compared to like some European countries and stuff.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
And it should be. Because look at all the fucking farms we have.
That's it.
Right?
Wages are flatlined, penalty rates have been cut. Parents are worried if their kids will ever be able to afford their first home. Older people are worried about whether or not...
Well, then why are we supporting mass immigration, Bill? Why are we doing that? Why are we increasing the population of Australia in major city centres by 30, 40, 50% in some cases over the last 3 decades, which is a completely... It's not about diversity. It's not about hating people. If you want to talk numbers and you want to talk data...
It's about that you can't build the infrastructure to keep up.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Well, and people have got to live somewhere.
Yep.
So that if there's more people competing for less housing, what do you think happens to the price of housing, Bill? But then they're like, no, we're going to keep bringing them in. Got to keep bringing them in. It's just such rubbish. You could go through everything this guy says line by line. And the Conservatives aren't much better. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here saying like you should vote for the Conservatives because everything they say is true. Far from it. But everything that this guy says, in one way or another, is just a lie.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to move on to another little clip here. Once again, you're listening to the Common Discourse podcast. Thanks for joining us. Myself and the voice of reason, Adam J. This I thought was very funny because is your screen on? Has it gone on?
It's
okay.
on. I'm just interested.
Okay. So a topic I've been talking about on my personal show, The Daily Boogie, which you can find on iTunes and Podbean, by the way. Just saying.
Of course, great show.
Of course, great show. Great show. Adam's a big fan. Never watched it, but he loves it.
No, I have.
Have you? You shouldn't. You should absolutely watch it. One of the topics we've been talking about is censorship. Now, in Australia, they rushed through a bill 5 days after the Christchurch shooting to basically impose prison sentences and crippling fines on Facebook if they allow quote-unquote dangerous content to go live in a live stream, or dangerous content to be shown on their pages. Now, we will get to, in the last 24 hours, Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, and the like have been kicked off Facebook for quote-unquote dangerous content, the exact same wording that I said 2 weeks ago on my podcast that nobody listens to. But so this happened in light of this.
Oh, it's great. You know, just a side note here.
Yep.
I mean, Laura Loomer, I mean, that's a great decision by Facebook. Well, I'm just saying.
Just to get rid of it because she's annoying.
Yeah. Anyway.
Just carry on.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. My argument was that this is a backdoor to censorship. The government doesn't have to come out and ban things. What they can do is impose criminal penalties and financial penalties on companies. Therefore, it becomes if there's too much liability to allow people to post things, they will just ban them.
Yeah.
Right? So now they can't take any risk. So they have to eliminate all the grey area because now the threat of either jail time for these executives or crippling financial sanctions, and we're talking like 10% of profit, which would ruin a company, right? So now with those out there, now they have to take like a zero tolerance approach to everything. But that it works both ways. Check this out.
Terry, let's take a look at tomorrow's Herald Sun. There's an interesting story here about Facebook. Social media giant Facebook has been banned. They've banned a road safety authority from posting an advertising campaign because it features crash test dummies. Apparently, that's too gory for Facebook. Give me a...
Now this lady, I don't know who she is hosting this show, but I guarantee you she would have been one of the voices on this television channel that would have been saying, "Oh, we've got to get the bad content off Facebook." And she's like, "Oh, the crash test dummies are too gory. Give me a break." No, you don't understand what we've been telling you. You do not understand what we said
Suddenly
would happen.
She's got a problem.
Now you got now it's like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." Really?
My crash dummy videos.
This is a great thing.
Break, Terry?
Yes, no crash test dummies. I mean, we've got to protect their sensitivities, don't we? But basically, the Australian New Car Assessment Program, ANCAP, the one that does these crash tests, has been banned from Facebook because they're showing dummies getting hurt. But isn't that the whole point about crash test dummies? They're there to get hurt, to inform us about the safety of the cars that are being tested. So
But isn't the whole point about having draconian censorship laws on platforms like Facebook that you're going to eliminate legitimate things? I mean, that's been my point for a long time.
Well, yeah. I mean, this all goes to the sliding scale definition of what dangerous is.
What is dangerous?
What is dangerous? I mean, you know,
everything.
Well, I know people that think absolutely everything's dangerous.
Yep.
Or there's a sense of danger. You know, danger could appear. So
everything's dangerous.
No, it's very subjective, and who decides it? Who decides it? Like just some, I don't know. It's public opinion, isn't it? I mean, if something's on Facebook that, you know, certain members of the media or a left-wing politician in particular sees as dangerous, they bring it to the fore. They might, you know, repost it on Twitter or whatnot, and then suddenly it's all dangerous. And, you know, there's a couple of thousand letters to the editor going to facebook.com.
And outrage campaign starts.
Then it's dangerous, yeah? It's dangerous because it triggered people.
Yeah, the danger is defined by, you know, nameless people on the internet.
Yeah.
Who retweet each other. You know, I did a story again. I'm sorry, I don't want to.
And I've got, sorry, just to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Twitter can't be trusted for reliable political information. I mean, we saw,
Correct.
you know, the bot army by the Kremlin. You know, on one hand, you know, this is horrible. You know, you can't trust a word that's coming out from Twitter. But someone comes on Twitter outraged about something benign and stupid as a crash test dummy, and it's suddenly, you know,
All of a sudden, it's news.
it's relevant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
There's a
gospel
breast
truth.
cancer campaign, a fundraising campaign for breast cancer, has been banned too because ladies stripped off and put. It's sponsored by
Well, nudity is wrong. Right? Remember, if you know, but hey, you're posting. If you know, we've got to get people complain. The mummy bloggers will complain about seeing too many lewd images on Facebook, which you're allowed to complain. That's fine.
No, yeah.
There are obviously filters that you can yourself enact, but perhaps people are too lazy or too stupid to figure that out. And so they see something that they don't like. It becomes a campaign. Okay, we need to ban nudity. Oh, what are you banning the breast cancer ads for? Because it shows a breast. So the algorithm picks it up. And so then it gets ripped off Facebook. It's
It's amazing.
This is what we're telling you is the problem, though. But these people are idiots. Well, they're not idiots. Like, I'm not saying this guy's an idiot. He's probably, I think, more aligned than with what we're saying. But the people who call for these kinds of draconian, over-the-top censorship campaigns, they really don't have a full level understanding of what they're really asking for.
Well, they can't, you know, they can't see the problems that they can't foresee. You know what I mean? Like, they're just absolutely blind to that.
First level thinking only.
Yeah, it's about now. It's about how I feel now and how do I fix that.
Yep.
It's nothing, you know, it's not even looking to, 2 weeks in the future even or thinking about how this could go wrong. This is about, I feel really strongly about this and this needs to be fixed now and you need to do X, Y, Z. And that's it. And that's it's just, it's very cocooned.
It is very cocoon. Let's do this. Let's go over to Facebook and touch on the news of the last 24 hours. It's Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, and other far-right figures banned from Facebook. Yes, Milo Yiannopoulos. I love when they call him far-right. Oh, that gay guy, that gay liberal who has sex with black men. Yes, I'm sure he's a big fan. Like the Nazis are big fans of him. Right? And Alex Jones, if he's anything, he's an angry libertarian. Alex Jones. Facebook
Militant libertarian.
Militant. Well, look at the picture they chose. We got to get him there with a gun. Is that an AK? That's an AK. So that's obviously, so he's got ties to Russia because he's got an AK-47.
Oh, well.
Obviously. Facebook has permanently banned prominent far-right figures such as InfoWars founder Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Laura Loomer, and also Paul Joseph Watson, you'll be pleased to know. He's dangerous too. He had to be ripped off. Following an announcement, it was removing white nationalism and separatism from the social
media.
Can
I just stop you here?
Absolutely.
Can I just stop you? I mean, I remember Laura Loomer.
The Jewish white nationalist.
Yeah. I mean, this is back in the days when I was on Twitter quite a bit, and she went up for a massive, I don't know, working holiday, I guess you could say it.
To Israel.
To Israel. Yeah, where it was constant pro-Israel,
all the time. Yep.
Propaganda. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I don't agree with a lot what she said, but she's more than welcome to say it.
Go for it. Well, apparently not, because she kicked off the
and then suddenly she's like some kind of white nationalist star. I mean, it's just
ridiculous.
It's
insane. But we knew this was coming.
Yeah.
We knew it was coming. We're not surprised.
And to lump these people together, notice one thing, how they lump people together, like Alex Jones, Milo,
they're all
and
the
Laura
same.
Loomer. They're all the same. And they're quite different.
Yes.
Very different. They're individuals. But no. You got to lump them into a collective because that narrative is easier to sell to the public.
That's right. Because the public is used to first-level thinking only, very shallow thinking.
That's it.
Other far-right figures banned include InfoWars editor Paul Joseph Watson, white nationalist Paul Nayland, and leader of the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan, who's like hates the whitey. But see, I think the reason that they banned Louis Farrakhan is because then they throw him into the mix. It makes it look like they're taking an even-handed approach here.
That's a credibility thing, isn't it?
Credibility thing. And I actually saw a number of conservatives today on Twitter ads running around saying, well, at least they got rid of Farrakhan because he's been a problem for a long time. I'm like, no, don't you see what you're doing? You're supporting what they're doing. It's like, I don't believe Alex Jones should be taken off, but fuck that Louis Farrakhan. No. We need to have some absolutes here. And I'm a free speech extremist. Like I make no bet. I don't even think that incitement to violence should be a thing. Because if you listen to somebody, You know, if that Christchurch shooter read a book that said, go and shoot up a mosque, and he went and do it, I would not throw the author of the book in prison, right?
Yep.
So, you know, but that's a topic for another. That's never going to change.
It gets difficult. Like, you have to admit that it gets difficult at that stage.
Yep.
But yeah,
I think ultimate responsibility is on the person, right? So that's how much I'm willing to go down the free speech road, just putting that out there.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we can't then turn around and say, well, bravo for getting rid of people like Louis Farrakhan, because then what you're doing, you've become trained, like that learned helplessness. You've become trained to accept their terms of engagement here. And it's that, like, we can just ban anybody and we'll just ban people that we disagree with. Now you're actually supporting the whole thing of banning people we disagree with.
Yeah. And you know, there is a silver lining here. I think there is, you know, there comes a time where people will see the truth about Facebook. I'm, you know, in a way, I'm happy about this. It's time, you know, we've had a kind of, you could say, Facebook era when it comes to the internet, and it means
Facebook's not cool anymore.
Facebook's not cool, and it hasn't been cool for a year or two now, and they're bleeding from what I can remember.
Yep.
Not, you know, fatally, but you know, they are bleeding.
They're wounded.
That growth isn't there that there once was. And, you know, people are thinking about it again, about, you know, Facebook and the role of Facebook in their lives. And hopefully, you know, they keep on going and they absolutely shoot themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And hopefully people just turn away from Facebook. And that'll be the great thing to come out of this if they keep going the way they are.
Well, I think the thing is here that people, you know, should try to keep in mind is once you start banning things, it's very difficult to stop. Because once you've banned all of the really extreme guys, quote unquote, once you've banned the extreme far right, there's still going to be an extreme far right, but they're just going to be a little less extreme than, because there will be a new extreme compared to everybody else.
Yeah, it's like the socialist way of thinking. You know, first you start robbing the really, really rich, the billionaires and the millionaires, and then once you used up that well, you start moving onto high income earners that, you know, in the scheme of things aren't very that rich, and you start just
next thing you're kicking the shit out of
thieving, and then you're eating potato peels, and that's, you know,
you're kicking the shit out of a bus driver because he lives in a house.
Yeah,
he's a rich man.
Oh yeah,
he's rich compared to everyone else.
He's got property. Who is he to have property?
Exactly,
that's everyone's property.
So, you know, now that they've kicked off this round of far right, the next round will be the people next down on the ladder, and then after them they'll be like, oh, these people are extremists. Nobody else is saying these things on this platform because they've been normalized. You know, the adjustment is natural. You get rid of the edge. There's still an edge there. The edge doesn't go. There's always a fringe.
Yep.
It's just where you define the fringe to be.
Yep.
That's the problem. All right. Well, let's go to the US of A ads. Let's kick it into high gear. Let's rock and roll. Here's an article for you on this topic. It's taken a long time to get Trumpy involved. It's taken a long time they've dragged him kicking and screaming finally into the censorship on social media issue. I can understand he wants to stay out of it, but let's be honest here. One of the big reasons that he got elected in the first place was his ability to manipulate and mold and massage his social media account and get the media to report on what he wants them to report on. Trump warns he'll, and not only that, but the surrogates. Surrogates.
So I'm jumping in a lot.
Go for it.
But I mean, Trump is, you know, top Nazi, isn't he? I mean, and it's amazing. I mean, if
he is Adolf.
Yeah, if he's Adolf, why is he still on there?
Yeah.
Think
yeah.
about that.
Well, the SPLC, you know, they advise Facebook and other entities on what white nationalism is, and they define Donald Trump as a white nationalist.
So either there's two options here. Either he is a white nationalist and they're just refusing to boot him off.
Because he's the president, yeah.
Because he's the president. Or two, he's not a white nationalist and there's nothing to boot him over from Facebook or Twitter. So, I mean, take your pick.
One or the other. Trump warns he'll monitor the censorship on social media after Facebook bans some far-right leaders. How's he going to monitor the censorship? How's he going to monitor it if they're kicked off?
Well, he should stay clear.
Somebody in his administration. But see, I think there is a legal issue here, though, and people have brought it up. The reason that these companies get a certain amount of leeway is they have a special arrangement to not act as publishers. They're a platform, not a publisher. Now, once you start banning people because of the things that they publish, then you're acting as a publisher, which means then anything that's posted on your website, if you're a publisher, you are liable for legally. So people are now saying, well, okay, let's change the rules. Let's say then to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and stuff, all right, you want to act like a publisher? Now you act like a publisher, which then I say, well, no, that's what we don't want, because then if you only want CNN and MSNBC and Fox News to broadcast live on these platforms, that's exactly what you'll get, because everybody else will be too risky, too dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. Well,
They'll just ban everything.
That's right.
So, but that is a good way, I think, of pushing a little bit of pressure on them to say, if you don't, rein it in, then we're going to have to treat you as a publisher, because that's exactly the way they're operating right now. It's a tricky one.
Yeah. And I think, you have to get really clear really quick with these type of things. I mean, Facebook is not a government entity. And, Donald Trump should stay well clear of this whole thing. And he should keep the regulation to an absolute minimum. I mean, once he goes down this road, you can put your bank on it, put your house on it, that once Democrats get in power, this will be, even Donald Trump thought that, some regulation of the internet was necessary.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't believe with his type of regulation, we're going to fix it up. We're going to fine tune this regulation. We'll do it better, which of course they do.
More government.
And this cements your Facebook, Twitter, Google
as the monopolies.
As the monopolies in their relative, little
Correct.
niches. And it just stops any type of access from small players trying to, startups and whatnot.
Exactly. 100% on the money, as usual, the voice of reason, Adam J. And, if they will become by,
de facto.
They will be de facto arms of the government at that point.
Yeah.
Unofficial de facto arms of the government. It'll be essentially the Chinese model.
Yeah.
Of, economic fascism. Essentially.
Yeah, and a lot of the leaders from Facebook and whatnot, they play this game. They have this facade, this show that, they're kicking and screaming that, they're about, the free internet, about, freedom of speech, whatnot. But they really do want the government to come in with stronger regulations.
Absolutely.
That's what they want. That's their long game. And, so they can start banning people and say, hey, it's in the regulations.
Sorry.
I mean, it's nothing, it's not up to our judgment.
It's not personal.
It's not personal.
It's what the government
says.
Law.
This is the law. And we have to follow it. Otherwise, we have to pay $10 million for every,
Exactly. Infraction. Great comment in the chat from General Eaton adds, they operate under EU law, so that should tell you how incompatible that law is with US law.
Yeah, well, it's still a grey area. I mean, the internet in general, there is still...
it needs to be the Wild West forever.
It needs to be, but,
will it be?
It will be, but there definitely will be strong attempts by governments worldwide to regulate it.
President Trump on Friday threatened to monitor social media sites for their censorship of American citizens a day after Facebook permanently banned far-right figures and organizations, including conspiracy theory site InfoWars. They actually go one bit further than that. I saw a thing come out from Facebook today. I haven't verified it yet, but... they said anybody who mentions Alex Jones, unless it's for criticism, will be banned. So not only are they banning Alex Jones and InfoWars, if you mention Alex Jones, if you stick up for the guy, if you say it's wrong to ban InfoWars or Alex Jones, you will be banned too. The only way to do it is, the only way to mention Alex Jones is to be in clear...
Critical.
And it can't be sarcastic. They even went that far.
Wow.
It has to be clear criticism only. No. That isn't, it's just, I feel nauseous having to, that. It's so repugnant. It
is repugnant,
I don't even know.
But I think.
Where the fuck are we?
No, I think long term, this is great. See, that's where
because you're into this accelerationism stuff, aren't you?
No, well, I just think that, with each move that these big tech companies make,
makes it worse.
It's closer to their demise.
Is it though? Or is it entrenching more power?
No, well, it could go either way. I'm not saying definite. I'm not, rubber stamping it, but I think that, not to go all Jeff Goldblum, but life finds a way. I think eventually people will see that this is fucked up. There's something not right here. This is not.
Well, hopefully they do.
This is not in the spirit of the internet that we all quote unquote signed up for.
Is there an age problem here? Is there a boomer issue here? Because I tend to think, and present company in our chat, people that watch our shows, the boomers that watch our shows, you're not included in this. You get it. But I think there is a big majority of people out there, like 60 and over, who'll be like, you know those you can hear the conversation now. You know, those kids on the internet, they've been saying some terrible things, and we would never talk to other people like that back in my day. I think they should just get rid of all of them. It's so uncivil. It's terrible. My lovely wife, Mel, she was crying all night the other day because of some horrible things that she saw on the Facebook. So I think it's on us. We have a moral responsibility, Adam, to at least clean up. These companies need to clean up their act.
I think there's some of that, but the great thing about that is that boomers will slowly die out.
Yes, they will.
They will. I think the bigger problem here is young people. There are a lot of young people out there
Triggered.
That believe that some type of regulation, and these are young people that didn't grow up in the infancy of the internet like we did.
Yes.
I mean, we remember the 90s,
Yep.
The dial-up, the difficulties, and just the complete wild west that the internet was. The wild way. It was just crazy.
They didn't learn any patience either, because when you're watching a naked picture download for 10 minutes line by line, then you really learn how to be patient.
That's right. And they don't understand how lucky, I guess, humanity is to have the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, in certain ways, it's a deeper discussion.
It's a universe-changing thing.
Yeah. The information age. I mean, it's absolutely crazy.
And the fact that we're able to communicate with people in different countries, different cultures, different understandings, that's actually bringing more people together. But they're going to frame it all as, this is what's tearing us apart.
Yeah. And the thing is, our generation saw how it was before and sees how it is now. And we want to keep it, we want to keep that information flowing, I guess you could say, the marketplace of ideas.
Sure.
While there are young people now that grew up with the internet already here. They're taking it for granted.
Yep.
It's just part of the furniture.
Yep.
And that's why I think my concern is the younger people. There's a lot of, and I see it all the time, well, they should be banned, they should be this, they should be, whatnot. And that's very worrying. I think it's very...
Okay. No, I think that's fair enough.
Fuck the boomers, though.
I just want to wrap up that conversation with a little bit of Chris Matthews.
Oh,
Today is World Press Freedom Day, and if you did not have the person we have now sitting in the Oval Office, this topic would naturally have us thinking about conditions overseas. But today we cannot have that luxury because the freedom of the press guaranteed to this country by our founders does not stand here today.
How are you making this announcement then, Chris? Is it an end of fucking argument?
I think it's horrible. I once had a discussion with someone on Twitter.
End of argument.
A non-discussion where there was that. It was a few months ago. I might have even mentioned it on the show.
I have to interrupt. Kimmy in the chat saying basically don't trust anyone under 30 because she's saying it's the young people in regards to the censorship and stuff. Kimmy, that's what the kids in the 60s used to say who are now boomers. That was literally a saying by the socialists of the 60s and the hippie era. Don't trust anyone under. I'm not even joking. Like word for word.
Yeah.
So if you say, it's not the boomers, it's the kids. Where did the kids learn it from? The boomers.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same
That's
shit that
right.
they were saying back in the day. So unironic. I don't know if you were being ironic or unironic there, but thank you for bringing it up. It's the exact same saying. Don't trust anyone under 30.
World Press.
Oh no, over 30. Sorry, they were saying over 30. Don't trust anyone over 30. Pardon me.
Right.
Yeah. But you know what I'm getting at there, right? Okay.
Age identity. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm
an ageist.
And World Press Freedom Day. Great thing about that, a few months ago when all the papers in the States had a common editorial.
Jamal Khashoggi?
Yeah, well, about Donald Trump's attack on the free press. And I asked a very simple question. Like, you know how they swarm on Twitter and they, the confirmation bias, they're all slapping each other on the back. And my question was very simple. What has Donald Trump done that, I guess, attacks the freedom of the press? Like what actual acts?
Nothing.
I mean, absolutely nothing. Nothing. Zero. It's not there. And
he's criticised them.
And there was no answer. This thread maybe had 30, 40 replies and it was active at the time. And I didn't even get an answer.
Yes.
And look, let's look at it from this viewpoint, yeah? Yes, these people believe that Donald Trump has attacked the press. Someone comes in and asks them, okay, so what's the evidence? What's the story here? Convince me. Silence.
Yes.
Because there's nothing there.
No.
It's absolute, it's laughable. I mean, Yeah, I don't know what your views are on it, but
Well, pretty much the same as yours. I would say I would go one step further in saying that if you weren't allowed to criticize the press, then it wouldn't be a free press.
that's right.
The thing that makes it a free press is that you are allowed to criticize it. And yes, even the president of the United States, because, at least in theory, common law exists. And, remember, it doesn't matter if you're the president or you're cleaning toilets, the rules should apply the same to everybody, that kind of thing, right?
I think they like to go down the road that the president's inciting violence against the press.
Yeah.
And that's going back to your point before.
Which is garbage.
That's drawing a long bow. That's just absolutely.
It's such a long bow, you would have to dislocate your shoulder to get it back that far. In order to get it back that far. Let Chris Matthews roll on for a couple more seconds.
As an uncontested value. Today, this country is governed by a president who believes the free press is to be derided, not just on certain occasions, but relentlessly. A day doesn't begin, it seems, till Donald Trump has launched his sunrise ceremony of assault on the country's leading newspapers.
Listen to the language. His assault on the leading newspapers.
Chris Matthews sees himself as,
the anointed?
Yeah, like a divine right. I mean, this is like the monarchs in Europe back in the Middle Ages. They see themselves as, anointed. They have the divine right to, I guess...
We decide what's real and what's not real.
Yeah.
We will tell you.
Yeah. And then, we want to go this way, we want to go that way. And you just got to listen and take it. And I mean, any type of dissent is just basically, not acceptable.
There is a lot of entitlement there. And I think, just to top it off, I don't know, are you a fan of Project Veritas? Some of the work they do?
They've been...
That's real journalism, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, James O'Keefe. James O'Keefe once came out and said, and I think he got it from the late, great Andrew Breitbart, the problem with journalism now is they see journalism as an identity when it's actually an activity. And so, they think because they are journalists, that grants them certain privileges, certain rights that other people do not have or other people cannot do. And nobody else has credibility like to discern information or break news or anything like that. He said, if you've got a phone or if you've got a pen and a pad, if you write up a blog later on that night, about government corruption in your little local council, you are doing journalism.
Oh, yeah.
So, but journalists believe that it's not just an activity, it's an identity.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's move on. Because, obviously William Barr ads was in the news for the last couple of days. This got sent through by our absent member of the panel, Varun Prasad. He wanted us to play a little bit of Tucker Carlson.
Washington, hard as it may be to believe, 2 weeks after the release of the Mueller report. But on Capitol Hill tonight, they are still yelling about Russia! It's as if the most exhaustive federal investigation in a generation never even happened.
I still love Tucker because he is smarmy, isn't he?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
he's got so much confidence though. But he's generally spot on. But I do love the way he does have like that passive aggressive attack mode in him. Like which
he
I
does.
which
He's always had that, even back to the CNN days.
Oh, absolutely.
Crossfire.
The bow tie.
Yeah.
Just wearing the bow tie would be triggering to some people.
Oh,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
So he
Me
wore it in
included.
there every week.
Yeah.
It's as if the Russia collusion story was completely real and not a ludicrous hoax pushed by ruthless partisans. It's as if facts no longer matter at all.
Well, they don't.
Only emotion and ambition and the overriding will to power. These apparently are the new rules in Washington. The Attorney General...
By the way, Trump tweeted this video.
William Barr learned them today as he was summoned before the Congress. Angry Democrats interrogated Barr about the letter he wrote in March summarizing the Mueller report. Now, you might wonder why anyone would care about that letter. The entire Mueller report was subsequently released not long after the letter.
That was the dumbest, that was the craziest thing. And I've got to tell you, like, a little story adds. Like, this happened in real time. People who watch my daily show know that this happened in real time. We did the show about William Barr, the DMV Employee of the Month, William Barr. And I was saying, how crazy are these people? They're accusing this guy of a cover-up when they have the full report right there in their hand. And so the big theme of the proceedings of the day was this short memo that William Barr wrote, summarizing the conclusions or whatever, however you want to say it, in the Mueller report. Apparently, Robert Mueller's team sent him a letter saying, we think that you didn't do a good enough job explaining what we did. We want you to release the first 19 pages of the report to give the public a better understanding of what we actually did. William Barr said, no, I'm just going to release the entire report, not just put it out in dribs and drabs. And then, of course, this became the topic of conversation. And it's that, he's trying to cover up the report because he didn't release the 19 pages. And of course, simply just looking at this, you would say that's fucking insane. He's released the entire report and he had no obligation to release the entire report, but he did. So how can you accuse the guy of covering it up based on this Robert Mueller letter that said, I'm upset. I said, if anybody comes to you tonight and says William Barr is trying to cover up the report that is freely available and anyone can download it, you're speaking basically to a lunatic at that point. And then as soon as I finish the show, about an hour later, Joe Scarborough on Twitter, Joe Scarborough on Twitter, AG Barr is basically acting like a criminal. He's trying to cover up the findings of the Mueller report, just like that. And this is one of the, the top dogs in morning breakfast panel news shows right there. And so I'm like, there's your lunatic right there. What are your thoughts on all that?
Oh, well, the AG is part of the cabinet. I mean, there is absolutely no shock or no surprise on my part that he tried to summarize the report.
He had to get something out there.
No, he summarized the report. And of course, it was favorable for the Trump administration. He is part of the Trump administration. Now, and this is where it gets dicey and tricky. Because, a lot of people talk about Eric Holder.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that he acted. I mean, he was basically Obama's, right-hand man, wingman in the Justice Department. And, so I think that's already baked in, that, Barr will give a favorable spin on the Mueller report. Now, having said that, it's absolutely fair. And it's totally defensible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's nothing that I can see here that's unethical or contrary, I guess you could say, even to a level of the Constitution. You know what I mean?
Sure.
This is normal, and this is all politics.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Barr's an absolute criminal. And, let's boot him out. Let's lock him up.
How can he manipulate? How can he do so? The whole report is out there. Now, if he didn't release the report, you could come out and accuse the guy of coming up with a favorable memo that's trying to mislead the public. But the very fact that he put it out there, and we're talking like one of the most unredacted official documents in American history here. Like the one that he gave to the Congress was 98% unredacted.
And
Only
that,
the stuff that he
that goes to
legally
show
can't.
how flaky the case was.
Exactly. That's why they didn't worry about putting it all out there, because to anybody who reads it, it's plainly obvious that this guy didn't collude and there was no credible obstruction charge that could be placed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, citing comments from people in the office about how frustrated he is with the investigation does not constitute obstruction.
No, well,
justice.
it's just
the fact
gossip.
that it went for 2 years proves that there was no obstruction, right? So there's that. But the reason he put out the memo, the reason it took 2 weeks, did you know this? He actually got in touch with Robert Mueller and said, listen, do me a favor, take out the E6 redactions. Tell me where they are in the report so we don't have to do it. And Robert Mueller refused to do it, didn't do it. So and he knew it would take a couple of weeks for him to go do that process and go through, because it's a very complicated process of taking out this grand jury information. And then in that 2-week time, guess what happens in the corporate press? This letter gets sent to William Barr. You need to do this, you need to do that. Robert Mueller trying to steer the ship. And the corporate press for those 2 weeks is, we demand the report. Why isn't he releasing the report? Oh, it's obviously a cover-up. That's how you create a narrative.
Oh, yeah, well.
Right there.
Yeah. You're stoking demand.
Exactly. Here's a quick one from our girl. Is she still our girl, Molly Hemingway?
Oh, absolutely.
Molly Hemingway. Following months of angry claims by journalists and Democratic operatives that the Obama administration never spied on Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, the New York Times admitted Thursday that multiple overseas intelligence assets... what are you talking about? Five Eyes, a country is? Thursday, that multiple overseas intelligence assets were deployed against associates of the Republican nominee. It is not the first time the Times has revealed widespread spying operations against the campaign. Although, if you listen to Sheldon Whitehouse, Senator for the Democrat Party, he would say, no, you're not allowed to use the word spying. You have to say authorized surveillance activities. In addition to noting that longtime informant Stephen Halper was tasked with collecting intelligence on the Trump campaign, the Times story details how a woman was sent overseas under a fake name and occupation to oversee the spy operation. Oh dear, this is getting very murky, isn't it? The woman's real name is not mentioned in the article, though the Times say she went by Azra Turk, those damn Turks again, and has a relationship with an unidentified federal intelligence agency. Harper was handpicked by a seasoned FBI counterintelligence agent out of the New York office, according to that article. The Times does not identify the agent by name. The paper says the FBI agent spoke at a conference organized by Halper about a 2010 case involving Russians posing as Americans. Yes, I am good American Joe. I love President Trump. I am from America Town in Kansasville. And I love Trump, and Putin is good leader for Trump, and Trump is good leader for Putin. I am typical American Joe. Give me my apple pie hamburger. The public schedule for a 2011 conference hosted by Halper about the exact same case that shows that 3 FBI counterintelligence agents were invited to speak on the topic. Are we going to figure out more about this in the upcoming weeks or what? Or do you think it all just goes away like typical DC stuff?
Oh, it goes away.
Right.
I mean, this is too...
If you had to make a choice, more info or goes away, what do you pick?
It goes away. Okay. Well, I think, no, there'll be more info. There won't be, I guess, enough info for it to go crazy. And then it will just die away. This is like Hillary Clinton and the server thing.
She was on MSNBC the other night.
She's not, there were a lot of people around the election that, Donald Trump's going to lock her up, this and that. No, it's not going to happen. Just the same way as no one's going to lock up Donald Trump. There are people, very powerful people in positions of power that just are untouchable in the sense of that, yes, they can be forced out of power, but, when we're talking about jail actually sitting behind bars, I mean, it's not going to happen. And this is a scandal, but there's also a side of this that's completely, maybe normal is not the right word, but there is always, by counterintelligence, doesn't matter what country, you can think of the most liberal, Western liberal democracy out there, and I guess the United States is in that group, that does not vet political candidates, particularly candidates that come out of nowhere. They are vetted by the intelligence services of any country for that particular candidate.
Sure.
Now, the question here is this being used to spook people and to think that this is something unnatural or something that wasn't normal?
Well, I think there's another question, though.
Yeah.
And that's, you might say, did this go way over the line of any kind of typical vetting process? Was this targeting for political purposes?
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is yes. Mm-hmm. And I mean that, and
well, you can see here next to me.
It's the question after that is, okay, and so what? And what's going to happen?
What happens?
What happens? Are you going to try and bury Obama? And I'm not saying.
Well, it was interesting, Barr, when he was asked by Lindsey Graham. I don't know if you saw that exchange between William Barr and Lindsey Graham. Maybe I'll try and bring it up. Finish your thought. I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, so that's really what I was coming to. And is this something, I guess, that you could put in the normal sphere? And I don't think it is. I don't think it is. And this, this goes back to the infamous BuzzFeed report and these dossiers that were used to prop up these warrants. And it goes back to, what the FISA courts and all this and these warrants were set up to do. They certainly weren't set up to spy on presidential candidates. And that's where it gets a little tricky. And again, this even goes back to something else, Boogie, and that is that once you start getting in the precise legalities and into the weeds about this subject, that you lose a massive portion of the people's ear, if you know what I mean. This is like Scott Morrison talking about the difference of tax brackets or differences in climate change policy. That this gets very complicated very quick, and a lot of people just out there just cannot digest it. They can't. You really got to sit down. You got to map it out. You got to have a think about what's normal, what's not normal, norms, standards, protocols, and you have to have some type of knowledge on the legal processes that were happening in the background. And a lot of people just can't grasp that. It's too hard. They just land on, yes, Trump was spied on, or no, everything was normal, and it's noise. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere, to be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know if I can find the particular part that I'm talking about, but I'll just have a quick look. No, I can only find a statement. So basically what he said to William Barr was, do you share my concerns with how this investigation started? Yes. Do you share my view on the Hillary Clinton email case? Yes. Would you like to see more investigation going here? Yes. And at one particular time, he was asked, in regards to criminal leaks of information to the media, what's going on there? And he said, we have a number of investigations ongoing right now.
No,
so perhaps people in the media are about to get their comeuppance.
Yeah, well, he's keeping them on their toes. Again, I don't think there'll be much to come from that.
We'll have to wait and see.
With regards to Hillary and Obama, it's a question also of strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you gain? And the answer that I always come up with is not much. I mean, as soon as you start going down that road, that the Justice Department can go down, that you start really jumping on these characters like Hillary Clinton and even Barack Obama, you start to buy the problem. And if it turns out that there's nothing there, that there's, that it was just all gossip and conspiracy theory, then that hurts you. That comes back to you. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening to the Democratic Party now and the mainstream media with regards to the Mueller report.
Sure.
Very much.
They were screaming for years that for 2 years there's collusion. Yeah. Ended up there's no collusion. Now they've got a great mouthpiece to kind of, I guess, deflect that problem that they've had. But that's the truth. I mean, it's hurt them badly. Like the Democrats, there's some talk about impeachment and whatnot, but impeachment's not going to happen. Not for a long, long time, unless something else comes out that's completely, new. I guess you could say new evidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as we stand now, forget about impeachment. I mean, impeachment is just absolutely fucking bullshit. It's not going to happen.
I found the bit I was talking about. Have a listen to this. See what you think.
That is Congressman Nadler, November the 14th, 2016. Did you have a problem with the way Comey handled the Clinton email investigation?
Yes, I said so at the time.
Okay. So, given the fact that a lot of people Comey should be fired, did you find that to be a persuasive act of obstructing justice?
No. I think even the report at the end of the day came to the conclusion, if you read the analysis, that a reason that loomed large there for his termination was his refusal to tell the public what he was privately telling the president, which was that the president was not under investigation.
As to where we go forward, as to how we go forward, would you recommend that this committee and every other committee of Congress do our best to harden our infrastructure against future Russian attacks?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you think Russia is still up to it?
Yes.
Do you think other countries may get involved in our elections in 2020?
Well, they will now, surely.
So you would support an effort by Congress working with the administration to harden our electoral infrastructure?
Yes.
Is that one of the takeaways of the Mueller report?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns about the FISA warrant process?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns about the counterintelligence investigation, how it was opened and why it was opened?
Yes.
Do you share my concerns that the lack of professionalism in the Clinton email investigation is something we should all look at?
Yes.
Do you expect to change your mind about the bottom line conclusions of the Mueller report?
No.
Do you know Bob Mueller?
Yes.
Do you trust him?
Yes.
How long have you known him?
30 years, roughly.
You think he had the time he needed?
Yes.
You think he had the money he needed?
Yes.
You think he had the resources he needed?
Yes.
You think he did a thorough job?
Yes, and I think he feels he did a thorough job and had adequate evidence to make the calls.
Do you think the president's campaign in 2016 was thoroughly looked at in terms of whether or not they colluded with the Russians?
Yes.
And the answer is no, according to Bob Mueller.
That's right.
He couldn't decide about obstruction. You did. Is that correct?
That's right.
You feel good about your decision?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Lindsay's pretty good in those moments.
Oh yeah,
That was good. That was good. All right, I want to end
we had a comment there that, you know, if
about the Constitution.
yes,
Okay, go for
the
it. Yep.
Constitution is worthless.
You have a right to reply.
No, I think that's a very idealistic and great point.
It's true.
And one that I'm very sympathetic to. But there are questions that you know, let's be honest here, specifically Donald Trump needs to think about here, and that is, do you want to tear the country apart? And is it the right time? And is that something you want to buy? Because that's, there's a lot of democracies out there, specifically in Eastern Europe, where a government gets kicked out, and in the next 3 or 4 years that the next government's in, it's about prosecuting the old government.
Yep.
Sending them to jails.
Sure.
This and that. And I'm not making a judgment call about whether it's that's how it should be or not, or whether it's,
But you're talking about what happens when you do that.
When you do that.
Okay.
And Donald Trump needs to have a think about, did he get elected to try, obviously he can't do it personally, to try and get Hillary and, let's say, Barack Obama into jail?
A lot of people have been chanting it.
Yeah, a little, and that's something that he has to think about. Or did he come into office to actually start and providing, I guess, sorry, Roll, I cringe while I say this, solutions, and to make sure everyone is winning. And I mean, and these are very important questions. You know, we talk about the Rust Belt.
Well, can't we have both?
Yeah, that's great. But the people that lost their jobs in manufacturing that expected, turnaround, we can argue about whether that's happened or not.
Sure,
that's all right. But these people, this person that's come back home, and he's worked a 12-hour shift, and all they're talking about on TV is about how Donald Trump's gonna start chasing Hillary Clinton into prison or something. She's gone. She's cooked.
Yeah,
she's never coming back, folks. She isn't. And she's a done political force. And is the right thing here to do is to try and get her into jail, or just try and move on and provide a good compact government? And that's a decision for Donald Trump. I mean, he can go there if he wants.
No, I think that's fair enough. There's always strategy.
Yeah.
Beyond ideals, there. What do they say? They say, shit. What's that term? I'm going to butcher it. That phrase, something along the lines of, idealism is what practical people call pessimism. I don't know. I can't remember. Something along those. Someone can Google it.
Oh, well, one more thing. If there's enough evidence, it won't tear the country apart because people will be pissed.
Yep.
If there was enough evidence, it would be happening already.
Well, perhaps. There. I mean, the top,
if there was slam dunk, but you can't refuse.
Come on now. But let's not pretend that. Certain investigations can't be led certain ways by certain people at the top of organizations. Right. So, just the fact that we haven't heard anything yet doesn't necessarily mean that there's no evidence out there, so to speak. You can't create evidence. You can't invent evidence. That's it.
So collusion's still on, basically.
No, but that's
we don't know. There might be some evidence there like this.
No, you can't invent evidence for a crime that never took place, and they had 2 years to do their best to do just that.
Well, you could argue that the Hillary Clinton server incident happened 4 years ago now.
I think that'll be valid after 2 years of a special counsel review of how the investigation started and perhaps manipulations of the Pfizer court process and whatnot. And if after 2 years they come back and say, you know what, all this talk about Hillary and the Democrats doing things wrong with their illegal servers, that's all rubbish, it didn't really happen, then we can say, well, I guess it's the same thing. But until then, we really have nothing to equate it to.
Is Hillary going to jail?
You know me, I'm naturally skeptic of these things. So for me, I don't care. I don't want to. I'm sick of the endless forecasting. So you know what? If when she's got handcuffs on, bring me the photo.
I just can't see the pathway.
I'm not saying it will happen or it won't happen. It might happen. Yeah. But when I'll worry about it when it happens. You know what I mean? I'm just tired of the endless cycle of forecasting. Like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's like, I don't care. I don't care.
It's like a weatherman.
Show me when it happens. And I think I'm fair enough in that view. But maybe all we just need to do, ads, is kick back with a few suds and chill out. Check out what happened on the streets of Milwaukee.
They put a rubber pad over that sewer grate here now, but we saw video shot here earlier today that shows Miller Coors employees scraping that foam away.
Yes. Hi.
Can I help you?
No, I didn't ask for any help.
Glenda Lee is fed up with the foam.
I didn't ask for any help.
For the last 2 years, Lee says she's seen it bubbling out of the sewer near 41st and State and Miller Brewery.
What is that? It's disgusting, right?
big.
It looks like
bubbling.
It looks like a mini shaving cream volcano, doesn't it?
She tells me she
Remember? Marshmallow Man coming out of the sewer, is it?
complained to officials back in January, but never got a response and shot more video.
Look at that.
Washing it down the sewer.
Of Miller employees spraying the foam down and on Thursday, scraping it away.
You know, those fish are now fucking partying, by the way. I bet you that would be a hot fishing spot to wherever that storm drain comes out and whichever lake it comes out. Just throw a line in there. Because
Is that
there's
a brewery there?
That's a
or-
brewery.
Oh,
Miller's
right.
Miller's Coors Brewery.
Right.
Yes. So there's excess beer shit coming up out of the drain, out of the brewery. How the fuck does that even happen for 2 years?
See, it's all them EPA cutbacks, mate.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all Trump's fault.
That's it.
It's all Trump's fault.
We are addressing it, so we just start adding.
What I'm surprised is why aren't there more hobos on the scene? Like, wouldn't you be down there scooping it up? Like just laying face down in the foam, like
just soaking the newspaper in it.
and that which you put over your face later on. You'd be soaking every article of clothing you have in it.
The foamer and the sewer has collapsed inside.
My concern is the lady on the video that I gave you said that they added a chemical to cause the foam to defoam. So what's in that?
I called
Chems.
officials with the
We love chems.
Department of Natural Resources and Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. They say the bubbles are excess beer foam getting washed down Miller's internal drains at such a rate they end up pushed up and out of the street's curbside drain. They say the foam eventually makes its way into the public sanitary sewer system.
Every day that I've come, it's been here. It's been here even when the snow is here.
And while officials say the foam and defoaming chemical don't pose any threat to the general public,
Imagine that. Just walking up with a, little spadel, little spade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just get the, the Slurpee cup and just get your
beer snow cones. Yes. Beer Slurpees, ladies and gentlemen. You are a fucking visionary, Adam J.
That's it.
That's
you don't even need the spade. You can just go like that.
Well, just further evidence that government fixes every problem. Because, hey, we got in touch with, what was it? The Milwaukee Authority on Drainage and Sewerage Authority of the Port, or whatever the fuck it was. Some agency that probably gets far too much money and has far too many letters in its fucking name. Oh, we got in touch with them, but apparently foam beer has been pouring out onto the streets of Milwaukee for the past 2 fucking years, and nobody bothered to do anything about it.
And what's with the tools? Do you see that guy?
He was using the drain thing to scrape it back in.
No, it's like you just ripped off some cardboard and you're just using that as a scraper. I mean, come on.
Can't we invest in a little something better here?
Miller, like, just get him a proper shovel thing or whatever.
I know, right? That's the best we can do. Ads. Voice of Reason, Adam J. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone in the chat. Keep in touch with us by following us on Twitter at TCD Tweet. They can follow you at Ted Dabrowski. You can follow me at Boogie Bumper. It's been an absolute pleasure to be with you. Don't forget other shows tomorrow night, Ladies of Liberty with James R. at Real Person PLTCS. Myself and James will be together on Sunday night at TAV Show. Follow that on Twitter. And then I'll be back with the Daily Boogie Monday through Thursday next week. So, Ads, any last words?
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, that's it.
Great way to end it. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. Until next time, stay calm, stay rational. God bless. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Flip,